There's a chilling synchronicity to it, isn't there? The moments you feel closest to breaking through a long-standing barrier, a genuine leap forward in your life, are precisely when the ground beneath you cracks. It's as if a hidden force, an unseen hand, pushes you back just as you reach for the light. This isn't a random misfortune. It's a deep, unconscious mechanism, a guardian of the self you've always known, even if it's a self that's small and wounded. This pattern is what Jung might have called the inner executioner. It's the shadow self, the part that fears annihilation more than it craves liberation. It sees your growth not as progress, but as a threat to its very existence. Think of Icarus, soaring too close to the sun, not out of hubris alone, but because the heavens themselves beckoned him toward a forbidden brilliance. Or remember the Gnostic whispers, warning that certain kinds of light can blind, that false revelations can lead one astray. Every step towards becoming more of who you truly are, towards shedding the ill-fitting roles you've worn, awakens a primal fear. It's the fear of ego death, the terror of the void that lies beyond the familiar contours of your identity. This isn't a failure, it's a test, a profound, symbolic death that must occur. The old self, the suffocating identity, must be allowed to perish so that the new, more authentic you can finally breathe. This sabotage is the final identity trial. And what happens when even this self-imposed destruction feels like a betrayal? When the silence you seek in your moments of overwhelm becomes a deafening roar. In the next section, we'll uncover the silent war waged by the executioner within. And real quick, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell for more videos. Now let's keep going. The quietest moments are often the most perilous. You've ascended, touched a fragment of genuine possibility, and then, with an almost imperceptible shift, the edifice begins to crumble. It's the collapse that follows the ascent, a descent into confusion disguised as a setback. You felt the possibility of something more, a shedding of old skins, a step onto a new path. But instead of freedom, you found paralysis. The joy of potential evaporates, replaced by a suffocating weight. This isn't just bad luck. It's the signal that you've stirred something ancient within, a force that guards the borders of your known self. It's the silent executioner waiting in the wings, ready to strike the moment you dare to outgrow your assigned role. The Gnostics warned of these false lights, these ephemeral intuitions that lead not to deeper truth, but to a more profound entanglement. The experience is real, the ascent feels genuine, but the trajectory is a planned descent. This pattern suggests that our pursuit of growth is often met with an equal and opposite force of regression. The closer we get to individuation, the more fiercely our inner critics seem to awaken. It's a painful paradox, an inner conflict that tells us that blossoming requires a death, that becoming requires unmaking. Each step forward is met with the phantom limb of our past selves reaching out to pull us back. You weren't simply trying to find yourself, you were trying not to feel the void of your not-self. But what if that void is actually a doorway? In the next section, we'll confront the silent executioner who whispers doubts from the shadows. There is a shadow that moves with you, an internal sentinel that stands guard over the gates of your perceived self. It's the silent executioner within, the part of you that acts as judge and jury, condemning any deviation from the established order of your personality. When you attempt to expand, to claim a new territory of being, this force appears. It doesn't roar or threaten. It simply begins its work with quiet precision, dismantling your confidence, questioning your motives, and reinstalling the old guard of self-doubt. This internal mechanism is a protector, but its methods are destructive. It operates on the principle that safety lies in sameness, that transgression is synonymous with annihilation. It has been present for so long it feels like an intrinsic part of you, a voice of reason when it is, in fact, driving you toward ruin. This is the Jungian shadow made manifest, not as a projection onto others, but as an internal executioner of your potential joy. It thrives on your fear of the unknown, its power growing in the fertile soil of your insecurities. Why does this part of you seem to win so often? Why does the moment of clarity always give way to the fog of self-recrimination? It's because this executioner is less an enemy and more a distorted guardian, guarding a past identity that it believes is all you can possibly or should be. It whispers doubts when you need courage, breeds fear when you need faith. It's the subtle sabotage that makes your breakthrough feel like a mirage in the desert. You felt the promise of freedom in reaching higher, but then the internal alarms sounded. What happens when the very structure that claims to protect you is the one that imprisons you? We turn next to the tower that trembles at dawn, a symbol of fragile defenses. Imagine a tower built not of stone, but of habit, of fear, of the names others have given you. This is yourself, your identity, a structure you've inhabited for years. But as the first rays of dawn, the light of new possibility, begin to probe its foundations, you feel it. A tremor, the tower that trembles at dawn, is the fragile architecture of your ego, meticulously constructed to shield you from the raw vulnerability of existence. It's every defense mechanism, every rationalization, every lie you tell yourself to maintain the illusion of control and coherence. When external circumstances or internal stirrings challenge this structure, when the sun of impending change crests the horizon, the tower begins to shake. It's not a collapse yet, but a violent shudder, a desperate attempt to maintain its form against the inevitable. This trembling is the anxiety of becoming. It's the deep, unconscious recognition that the self you've built is a gilded cage, and the dawn represents not just a new day, but a potential escape that threatens the very walls you believed kept you safe. You might try to shore up the walls, to ignore the rumbling, to pretend the light isn't real. But the tremors persist, a visceral manifestation of your inner conflict. The comfort of the known is being assailed by the terror of the unknown. This isn't a failure of the tower itself, but a testament to the power of the dawn. The light, the truth, is too potent for such a brittle defense. The system is designed to resist change, and the dawn is the ultimate change agent. You're not afraid of the light because it's harmful, but because it threatens to expose the hollowness of the tower. What if the dawn isn't an attack, but an invitation? We continue this exploration with the descent of Icarus, a story that whispers of a different kind of fall. The myth of Icarus, we've all heard it. The boy who flew too close to the sun on wings of wax and feathers, a cautionary tale of hubris and disobedience. But what if this narrative, so readily accepted, obscures a deeper, more complex truth? The Icarus descent was not a fall, but a deliberate shedding. It wasn't punishment for flying too high, but perhaps a necessary disintegration. The wax, the feathers, the very invention of flight, these were temporary constructs, not the essence of Icarus himself. When the sun, a symbol of ultimate truth or overwhelming consciousness, began to melt the artificial bonds, it wasn't an external force destroying him. It was the unmaking of his chosen limitation. The fall was the release from that crafted identity. Consider the pain of self-sabotage. It feels like a plummet, a loss of control, a brutal consequence of ambition. But perhaps it is the artificial wings, the ego's creations, failing under the intense light of authentic potential. The descent in this light is not a failure of ascent, but a necessary disintegration of the false self. It's the universe's brutal, yet elegant, way of forcing you to confront what remains when the props are gone. This echoes the feeling when you're on the verge of something great, only to be pulled back by an inexplicable force. It feels like a fall, a defeat, but it might be the universe melting the wax of your acquired limitations, forcing you to accept the potential chaos of true freedom. The narrative of Icarus was a simplification, a way to digest an experience too profound for easy explanation. It taught obedience, but perhaps missed the lesson of deconstruction. What is left when the wings fall away? In the next section, we'll explore the role of shame in clinging to old identities. Shame, it's a cold, heavy cloak that clings to the soul, a constant reminder of perceived flaws and past transgressions. We believe it's a mark of our imperfections, a sign that something is fundamentally wrong with us. But what if shame is an intended guardian? Shame as guardian of the old name. This is its primary role in the inner economy of the self. It's the fierce protector of the identity you've been given, or the one you've constructed, often one that is no longer yours, but is deeply familiar. When you begin to whisper a new name for yourself, when you attempt to step into a role that contradicts the old one attached to your shame, shame becomes active. It whispers, "No, you are this. This is who you are because of what you did or what was done to you." It's an invisible tether, a psychic anchor that keeps you bound to a past narrative, a past role. The old name tied to your shame becomes a refuge because it's predictable. The new name, the unclaimed self, is terrifying precisely because it is unknown. The pain of shame is immense, a source of profound suffering. But by framing it as a guardian, we begin to see its purpose, however twisted, in preserving the status quo of the psyche. It's the security system of the unlived life. This protective function of shame is what makes you retreat when you're on the verge of change. It's the feeling of, "I can't possibly be that person," or "everyone will see me for who I really am," a desperate attempt to avoid the perceived judgment that shame anticipates. You feel shame not because you are inherently bad, but because your very essence is trying to break free from a name that no longer fits. What if the real transgression is not what you did, but what you refuse to become? We now turn to the allure of false light, a deceptive initiation. The seeker stands at a threshold, yearning for illumination. They feel a pull towards something brighter, something greater, a promise of transcendence. This is the initiation, the moment of entering a new phase of awareness or being, but not all lights lead to truth. The false light initiation is a powerful archetype. It speaks to those moments when we are drawn to experiences, beliefs, or even people that offer a dazzling shortcut to enlightenment, a seemingly easy path to spiritual or personal fulfillment. This false light often masquerades as truth. It's seductive, offering simple answers to complex questions, providing comfort and validation that feel profound but lack substance. It's the charisma of the con artist, the allure of the cult leader, the dogma of the rigid ideology, all promising salvation. The danger lies in its mimicking of genuine illumination. It provides an experience of intense energy or clarity, leading the initiate to believe they have found the sacred. Yet, this light often leads away from personal integration and deeper self-knowledge towards an external adherence. It's the spiritual bypass, the psychological shortcut. It offers an escape from the necessary work of confronting one's own shadow, the painful process of integration. The false light promises to make you whole without requiring you to become aware of what is broken. The intensity of this experience can create a powerful, albeit temporary, bond. It feeds the ego's desire for specialness, for belonging to an elite group privy to secret knowledge. But like a mirage, it evaporates when truly tested, leaving the seeker more lost than before. You were drawn to the glow, seeking answers you believed were hidden. But what if the brilliance you embraced was designed to obscure, not reveal? Let's explore this further when we consider the guilt of surpassing the father, a potent initiation into inherited roles. There exists an almost unspoken pact, a deep-seated reverence, and often a profound fear surrounding the figure of the father. In many ancestral narratives, the father represents authority, tradition, and the established order. To surpass him is more than a personal achievement, it is a transgression. The guilt of surpassing the father is a powerful, often unconscious, psychic burden. It arises when an individual achieves a level of success, authority, or independence that eclipses that of their paternal predecessor. This isn't about conscious disrespect, but about the deep-seated archetypal fear of usurpation. This guilt can manifest in self-sabotage. The individual might unconsciously engineer failures, downplay their successes, or avoid taking on roles that would solidify their ascendancy, all to mitigate the perceived betrayal of the father's legacy or authority. It's a primal echo carried through generations. The son who becomes king might feel an ancient dread of the overthrown father, even if the historical father was benevolent. The daughter who achieves business success might feel an echo of ancestral anxieties about women usurping male domains. This phenomenon is not limited to literal fathers. It extends to any predecessor, any mentor, any institution that has served as a primary authority figure. The guilt arises from the anxiety of breaking the chain of lineage, of stepping into a power vacuum that feels inherently precarious. The societal pressure to honor elders and respect tradition fuels this guilt. We are taught reverence, continuity, and stability. The idea of surpassing is often framed as an act of defiance, a severing of roots, rather than a natural progression of life. You felt the thrill of exceeding limitations, of stepping into a larger space. But what if that space feels stolen, tainted by an invisible legacy of obligation? We now examine the tower that trembles at dawn more closely, a symbol of our fragile inner structures. We spoke of the tower that trembles at dawn, a metaphor for the psychological structures we erect to protect ourselves. But let's look deeper into its vulnerability. This tower is not just built of habit and fear. It's constructed from our perceived sense of self, our defined identity. When the dawn, representing new awareness or opportunity, arrives, it illuminates the flaws and limitations within this tower. The trembling is not just a reaction to external change, but an internal signal that the existing architecture can no longer contain the burgeoning self. The tower is often built with the bricks of societal expectations, the mortar of past traumas, and the battlements of defense mechanisms. It provides a sense of security, a predictable environment within which to exist. But this security comes at the price of boundless growth. As we become more aware, as the dawn of self-understanding breaks, we begin to see that the tower is not a fortress, but a prison. The walls that once protected us now confine us, limiting our view and our potential. The trembling escalates when we attempt to leave. The doors we once found so secure suddenly feel like they won't budge. Or worse, they swing open to reveal not the freedom we anticipated, but a vast, disorienting emptiness. This is the illusion of the prison. We fear leaving because we believe the walls guarantee our existence. But perhaps it is the act of attempting to leave that truly tests who we are and what we are capable of becoming beyond the confines of our self-made structures. You felt the shaking, the unsettling of your foundations. But what happens when the prison you've inhabited your entire life suddenly opens its doors? We now explore self-betrayal, a ritualistic shedding. There are moments when the most profound acts of courage are disguised as acts of betrayal. We perceive ourselves as turning our backs on our true selves, on our commitments, on the version of us that we have always known. This is self-betrayal, but it might be a sacred ritual. Consider those junctures where staying true to an old path feels like a lie, and venturing into the unknown feels like a profound disloyalty. It's the moment you abandon a long-held belief, a comfortable habit, or a relationship that no longer serves your deeper essence. This betrayal is not of weakness, but of integrity. It is the soul's refusal to compromise with its own evolution. It's the brave act of severing ties with aspects of yourself that have become too small, too confining, too damaging to maintain. Think of it as a necessary sacrifice, like the shedding of a skin. The old skin, once vital, must be shed for new growth to occur. This shedding can feel like a betrayal of the past self, the one who wore that skin, but it is essential for survival and transformation. This ritualistic self-betrayal allows for the purging of old patterns and the release of stored emotional baggage. It's an alchemical process, transforming the stale energies of the past into the fertile ground for future becoming. The pain associated with this can be immense, often accompanied by guilt and a sense of disorientation. We may feel like we are abandoning parts of ourselves or those who depend on the old version of us. But this is the crucible of genuine change. You felt the sting of turning away, of abandoning what was once sacred to you. But what if this act of self-betrayal is not an end, but a sacred rebirth? In the next section, we will delve into Jung's forgotten warnings, wisdom we've overlooked. Carl Jung, a titan of modern psychology, left behind a vast landscape of thought, much of which continues to resonate and challenge us. Yet within his extensive work lie subtle warnings, potent insights that have been perhaps overlooked or softened by time and popular interpretation. Jung's forgotten warning often centers on the duality of the psyche, the perilous balance between the conscious and the unconscious, the light and the shadow. He cautioned not merely about confronting the shadow, but about the dangers of integrating it without profound reverence and understanding. There's a tendency in modern self-help culture to advocate for the uninhibited expression of all aspects of the self, to embrace the shadow as a source of power without fully acknowledging its destructive potential. Jung's warning was more nuanced. The shadow must be understood, integrated, but not unleashed carelessly. He spoke of the archetypes not as forces to be easily grasped or manipulated, but as ancient, numinous powers that demand respect and careful navigation. The integration he proposed was a process of conscious engagement, not simply an acceptance of all impulses. This forgotten warning highlights the risk of mistaking raw impulse for authentic expression. It suggests that what feels like liberation can, without proper psychological grounding, lead to chaos and self-destruction. It's the difference between mastering a force and being consumed by it. The allure of immediate self-actualization can lead us to bypass the arduous work of introspection that Jung so rigorously advocated. His work was always about depth, about understanding the profound psychological implications of the symbols we encounter. You've reached a point of deep questioning, feeling the weight of internal paradoxes. What vital truths did Jung attempt to impart that we have since obscured? We now look to the mirror where the orphan stares, a reflection of profound alienation. Hold up a mirror. What do you see? Beyond the surface features, do you recognize yourself, or do you see an unfamiliar face, a stranger peering back with an ache that feels both deep and ancient? This is the stare of the orphan, a profound reflection of alienation within the self. The orphan archetype is not solely about literal parental loss. It speaks to a deeper psychic severance, a disconnection from one's own inner source, one's core identity, one's sense of belonging. It is the feeling of being adrift, unanchored, even when surrounded by others. When you look in the mirror and see the orphan, you're witnessing the absence of a secure inner home. It's the feeling of being fundamentally unprotected, unloved, and unseen in the deepest parts of your being. This doesn't necessarily require a lack of external love. It's an internal state of abandonment. This alienation can manifest as a constant seeking without ever finding fulfillment, a desperate search for external validation that never truly satisfies the inner void. The mirror reflects not a whole person, but a fragmented soul piecing itself together. The orphan's gaze is one of yearning and suspicion, yearning for connection, for belonging, and suspicion that such a state is unattainable or that one is fundamentally unworthy of it. It is the self looking at itself and seeing only incompleteness. This existential aloneness can lead to a profound sense of shame, the feeling that one's very existence is a mistake, a burden. The mirror becomes not a tool of recognition, but a source of confirmation of this deep-seated isolation. You see yourself and feel a pang of longing, a recognition of a void. What is this feeling of being unrooted, and how does it lead us to the final gate? We now turn our attention to despair, the ultimate threshold. Despair, it is a word heavy with finality, a landscape of crushing weight and impenetrable darkness. We often see it as the end of the road, a pit from which there is no escape. But what if despair is not a terminus, but a threshold, the despair as the final gate? This perspective reframes one of the most universally feared human emotions. It suggests that the profound emptiness, the utter lack of hope that characterizes despair, can serve as a gateway to a deeper reality, a more authentic form of being. This gateway only appears when all other avenues for meaning, all superficial comforts, have been exhausted. It is the point where the ego's defenses are utterly dismantled, where the illusion of control is shattered, and where the individual is stripped bare of all pretense. To cross this gate requires a surrender, not of one's life, but of one's clinging to the false selves, the outdated narratives, the defenses that have kept one imprisoned. It is an act of profound letting go, of accepting the void as not an ending, but a precursor to a new beginning. The experience of despair is devastating because it forces us to confront the absolute limits of our current understanding and our ability to control our lives. It's in this raw vulnerability that the opportunity for true transformation lies. This is not romanticizing sadness, but acknowledging the potent psychological and spiritual function of utter hopelessness. It is in the deepest darkness that the faintest light of true awareness can begin to dawn, but only after all other lights have failed. You stand at the precipice, the weight of despair pressing down, feeling as though all options have vanished. What lies beyond this crushing finality? We now explore what is hidden beneath the veneer of progress. In our relentless pursuit of advancement, of self-improvement, of progress, we often convince ourselves that we are moving forward, shedding old burdens, and becoming better versions of ourselves. But beneath this polished surface, a different truth may lie. The soul's hiding place beneath progress. This concept suggests that our outward manifestations of growth and development may actually serve as a way to conceal, rather than resolve, deeper psychological issues or unmet spiritual needs. Genuine progress involves confronting and integrating our shadow aspects, our woundedness, our past traumas. However, when we focus solely on external achievements, on acquiring new skills, or on projecting an image of success, we can inadvertently create a sophisticated camouflage for inner stagnation. This hiding place is built with the bricks of activity. The more busy we are, the more goals we achieve, the less time and energy we have to examine the underlying source of our discontent or our unlived potential. We mistake motion for movement, accumulation for growth. The soul, in this context, is the deeper, more authentic self that yearns for authentic healing and integration. Instead of engaging with this inner realm, we bury it under layers of productivity, personal branding, and the constant quest for validation. It's a subtle form of self-deception, where the symbols of progress, a promotion, a new qualification, a healthier lifestyle, become a shield against the more daunting task of internal transformation. We are busy, yes, but perhaps busy hiding. You feel the momentum of your life, the constant drive forward, but a quiet whisper suggests something is being left behind, or worse, concealed. What if the true journey is not outward advancement, but inward rediscovery? We now shift focus to a more insidious fear. We often speak of the fear of unworthiness, a pervasive sense that we are not good enough, that we fall short of some ideal standard. But what if the deeper, unspoken terror is not a lack of value, but something far more unsettling, a fear of our own inherent worth, fear of worth, not unworthiness? This paradox suggests that true, untainted worth can be a source of terror. It challenges the familiar narrative of self-deprecation and opens up a different understanding of psychological resistance. Our ego constructs are often built on a foundation of perceived limitations and struggles. We define ourselves by our battles, our perceived flaws, and our efforts to overcome them. The idea of possessing inherent, unassailable worth can be destabilizing because it threatens to dismantle the very identity we have meticulously crafted. This fear arises from the anxiety of responsibility. If we are truly worthy, truly capable, then the excuses for inaction or stagnation dissolve. We are then confronted with the full weight of our potential and the imperative to use it, a burden that can feel overwhelming, even terrifying. The narrative of unworthiness is, in a strange way, comforting. It provides a justification for not reaching our full potential, for staying within safe, familiar confines. It absolves us of the immense pressure that true worthiness would entail? What if the struggle for self-acceptance isn't about diminishing our perceived flaws, but about accepting a magnitude of inherent value that is almost too vast to comprehend? This fear is the resistance to embracing our own light, a light that could illuminate the hidden places within us. You recognize the familiar tug of inadequacy, but a deeper unease suggests something else is at play. What lies at the heart of our resistance to our own inherent value? We now confront the ultimate obstacle, identity itself. In the grand tapestry of our existence, what is the most formidable adversary? What is the final barrier that stands between us and genuine freedom, between the self we believe we are and the self we are capable of becoming? It is identity itself, identity as the final nemesis. This is not to say that identity is inherently evil. Rather, it is the solidified, often rigid construct of who we believe ourselves to be, which, when it hardens, becomes the ultimate obstacle to expansion and authentic change. Throughout our journey, we have explored the self-sabotaging patterns, the inner executioners, the trembling towers, and the disguises we wear. All of these ultimately serve to protect and uphold a particular version of identity. When we attempt to evolve, to grow beyond the confines of this established identity, it acts as a powerful resistance. It labels new experiences as not us, new desires as unsuitable, and new potentials as impossible. It's the guardian of the status quo of the self. The nemesis is the ego's desperate clinging to its defined parameters. It's the fear of dissolution, the terror that if the current identity is shed, nothing will remain. This fear is a profound illusion. True selfhood is not static. It is fluid, dynamic, and ever-becoming. The journey of self-discovery is, in essence, a process of dismantling the false nemesis of a fixed identity. It is about recognizing that the core of our being is not a fixed point, but a boundless potential that can only be accessed when we loosen our grip on who we think we are. You have felt the resistance, the internal pushback against change. But what if the greatest liberation comes not from becoming someone new, but from finally shedding the weight of who you insist you must be? Now that concludes this video. Make sure to subscribe for more videos and hit that notification bell so you never miss a new video. We'll see you in the next one.